There is an undeniable urgency when painting outdoors. Nature's so grand, the canvas so small, it takes the human mind with all its grand abilities and complexities to sort through the overwhelming visual feast set before it and recreate on canvas the essential components of such beauty and wonder. Artist Jan Blenko. This is The Artful Painter, art lessons for artists, collectors, and people who love art. Now, your art lesson today comes from quite a different perspective. I'm speaking with Lillian Ansley, who is the co-founder of the Olmsted Plein Air Invitational, which is based here in Atlanta, Georgia. The Olmsted Plein Air Invitational is one of the most prestigious plein air painting competitions in the United States. It's in its 5th year of operation at the time of recording this episode. Plein air painters from all over the United States and beyond are invited to this competition, which is located here in Atlanta, Georgia. Now this year, which is 2019 as I record this, 26 of the most esteemed contemporary artists will be painting throughout Georgia and the greater metropolitan area the week of April 28th through May 5th. The Olmsted Plein Air Invitational was one of the first plein air events I experienced as, how shall I say this, a young painter, at least young in spirit, right? Young in my early development of the skill of becoming an artist. So and it was an experience that accelerated my desire to take up learning to paint in full earnest. So it was quite the catalyst for that. In this episode, Lillian pulls back the curtain and gives us an insider view of what it's like to run a plein air event. And my goodness, there's a lot of work that goes into this. She shares with us the lessons that she learned and the inspiration she has experienced from working with so many fine artists. Now, one thing I learned in my conversation with Lillian is that the Olmsted Plein Air Invitational is not just a singular annual event. Rather, it's a series of meaningful experiences that you can personally take part in throughout the year. There are a ton of opportunities for artists and collectors and people who love art. There's workshops, there's lectures, there's demonstrations, there's affordable buying opportunities for collectors. There's the opportunity to volunteer and have fun in doing that in support of Olmsted activities. You can provide financial support and the satisfaction that comes from giving and supporting it financially. And there's a chance to meet some of the best plein air painters in the country. So it's just a lot of fun. And as I mentioned before, the event spans for 2019, April 28th through May 5th of this year. So that's coming up really, really fast. Well, let's get into the conversation. My name is Carl Olson, and this is The Artful Painter. So Lillian, are you an artist yourself?
Actually, I graduated from the University of Georgia Lamar Dodd School of Art as a graphic designer. And then I went on to graduate school to get my master's in medical illustration. And I was a professional artist for probably 6 or 8 years. And my art career took me into a communications and marketing career, which is what I do now. Nice.
You were one of the co-founders of the Olmsted Plein Air event, and I found out about this event a little later in the history of Olmsted, but it's one it's fascinated me. My wife and I showed up at the Olmsted Park one year and listened to some of the lectures and demonstrations and watched the artists paint, and we probably aggravated quite a few as well because they're they're trying to paint. But it was a beautiful event, and I want to get the backstory on Olmsted, why you got involved and how it came to be.
The root beginning of Olmsted actually started in Cortona, Italy. I was fortunate that I was able to do a semester study abroad through the University of Georgia. At that time, we had landscape architect students, interior design students, as well as fine art painters, sculptors, graphic designs. And it was a life-changing experience for me and really prepared me for my next journey, which was graduate school. And
well, how was that a life-changing experience? What was there a pivotal moment there? You were there, and did you see something, do something that just had that profound effect on you?
Well, I grew up in a small town in Georgia, and my parents and close set of friends were my biggest cheerleaders. But in that town and my other exposures to art, I heard a lot of the starving artist stories. And at that, in Cortona, I learned, or I felt, I experienced, and I saw how an entire community, no matter what walk of life people were from, the very elite or the very poor, how art formed a bond and was inclusive and appreciated and respected. And it was just part of a way of life to have great art exposure for a community, to bring an entire community together, that really impacted me and gave me a different vision and motivation to make a try at my career in the world of art.
Wow. It is a life-changing experience when you go to a place where you see that. There just seems to be certain spots of the world where art is embraced. It's not considered something that's optional, but you have to live and breathe it, and it's a part of life. It's the salt and pepper and the red pepper and the cinnamon of food. You've got to have it to really enjoy the full range of tastes that are out there. So.
Well,
cool.
And it was for the people.
Yeah.
I mean, it was out there for people to experience.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't behind closed doors and for the elite, which it was at one point in our civilization. But that's what I saw. It was for everyone. Nice.
So how does that tie in with Olmstead?
So fast forward, a gentleman that I met in Cortona, who was a landscape architect, our paths crossed again here in Atlanta. Neither one of us were from Atlanta, but we ended up living in Atlanta. And he is a kidney transplant recipient. He happened to live in a section of Atlanta that was privileged to have a Frederick Law Olmsted Sr. historic park that had been restored. It was actually the last park or project he did before he passed away. So Georgia was very, very fortunate to have, this epic moment of his career here and to be the caretakers of the accomplishment of this gentleman. My co-founder came to me and said, I've been rehabbing in the park.
What better place to do that, right?
Well, exactly. Well, to be totally transparent, I didn't really know who Frederick Law Olmsted was, and I didn't know there was a park here in Atlanta.
Well, see, people need to know that backstory. Olmsted was also the architect behind Central Park.
Central Park
in New York City, yeah.
Also Prospect Park, and also our nation's Capitol grounds, and also Biltmore Estates, and the list goes on and on in the United States as well as in Europe. So it really is. This was sort of the capstone of his career here in what is now Metro Atlanta, and so. What my co-founder said to me, while he was the godfather of American landscape architect and urban design, I never really understood until I walked these parks, at daylight and dusk, in fog and rain to really understand what he was doing to create this oasis and to bring people together. And he said, but the problem is, millions of dollars have been put into restoring these parks and no one's in them. And I think we need to have a plein air event. And so that was the beginning of the dream.
Was he a plein air painter himself?
No, he was a retired landscape architect.
And but he was aware of plein air painting.
He was aware of plein air painting.
Yeah.
And so I can't say that I was familiar with the term plein air, but I was certainly extremely familiar with the Impressionist period of art and the roots of why people left the studios that were inside and the elite, both in the church and in the royals, commissioned these artists to do these beautiful things. But the Impressionist people wanted to go out to be among the people. And, they were able finally with their paints to be able to go outside and not be in the studio. And I'm familiar with all the great masters. And of course, if no matter where you are, a carnival or at an art fair, if an artist is outside doing caricatures or paintings, you always have to stop and look.
It's a spectator sport indeed. I mean, anytime that I've ever gone plein air painting, and I'm not very good at it, but I enjoy doing it. But it's nerve-wracking too, because it invariably draws people to you, and they watch, and there's a part of me that I just think that is so wonderful that people are drawn to something that is handmade, something that is transforming. Even if you're a terrible plein air painter, they love to see what you're doing. Just
to see the unfolding of what is being created.
Yeah.
So I did not know that you were a painter. So this will kind of all resonate with you. So in the late 80s, apparently, unknown to me, this resurgence of plein air painting started. But part of our challenges in wanting to start something here in Metro Atlanta, having looked far and wide, there was no model. There was no predecessor of doing anything in an urban setting. There were thousands of plein air events across the country and other places in the world, but they were all in harbor towns, marsh towns.
Carmel,
beach towns, Laguna Beach, Easton, the peninsula up near the Great Lakes.
But nothing in East Atlanta,
No, and so that was a challenge. Is there a reason why there's not one? So we looked at the viability and the stability of them across the country, and there were three that surfaced as the creme de la creme for many reasons. And we actually went and did our due diligence, and we met with all of the
which events were those?
We went to Laguna Beach.
Yeah.
We went to Easton, and we went to Door County.
Wow.
So,
what was the big lesson that you took away from talking to those to the organizers of those three plein air events?
We also spoke to some of the top artists, and they and the events organizers confirmed that we needed to come out strong. And coming out strong had two definitions. We needed to have a big enough purse to attract high-quality artists and high-quality judges.
Right.
Because the three of those things are what distinguish an extraordinary world-class event versus a local event. And even among those, they would have what we would consider maybe half of their competition field, top-tier artists, and the others very good artists. So with the help of these top artists and their relationships among other top artists, we were able to fill our first year not with just a portion, but every one of our artists.
What was your first year?
Our first year was 2015.
So it's, relatively young, but you came out swinging. That's for sure.
We came out slinging, had a $10,000 purse, and ours is an invitational. It's not a juried event.
Yeah. So for those that don't understand or just learning about this, what does that mean to be an invitational?
That means rather than have artists submit a portfolio, we developed criteria that include accomplishments, recognition by their organizations, had they competed in a plein air event? If so, how did they do? Had they won? Had they gotten awards? Where was their art collected? Different credentials. And we have a selection committee, not one person, but a selection committee that does the research and invites artists to participate, as opposed to having artists submit portfolios that are viewed and then juried.
Right. So what type of criteria? Well, you've mentioned some of the criteria, such as the awards and events that they've participated in. From an artistic standpoint, what are you looking for in their art?
We're not looking for a particular style. We are looking for an artist that translates what they see, whether it is graffiti on a city wall, or it is a park, or a raging river, or the North Georgia mountains, or our Golden Isles, has the ability to translate that into a beautiful painting that has all the qualities of composition, light, and resonates and is relevant to people that are viewing the paintings.
Well, you've had quite the roster of artists throughout the years, just looking at some of your past artists. As you were looking at some of their artwork, you were in a fabulous position to see everything, which is wonderful. Was there any surprises there in the paintings that you saw that just really moved you? Something that might have been unexpected, but you said, "Wow, that is I would have never thought to paint that, but that is just incredible."
Well, I think my reaction to plein air painting and the artwork that's come across the event in the first 4 years has been the ability to truly capture the atmosphere and the light and the persona of a place. Right now, I just happen to be looking at a watercolor that was done by an artist in South Carolina who will be back again this spring. And it is a downtown scene.
Which artist is that, Lillian?
That would be Russell Jewell.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And it is just a traffic scene. But there's some distinguishing features in this painting that if you're familiar with Atlanta, you know it's Atlanta, but if you're not, you can feel and hear and almost smell the traffic going by. But the shadows and the light and the motion that's captured in this painting really resonated me as a city goer that is in traffic and sits in traffic and observes traffic. And he found beauty in that. And a lot of people would have never picked that scene to paint. I've seen amazing photographs of light in trees that you would think you were in the Rocky Mountains or in the Appalachian Mountains, but they're in a little urban park. But it evokes a sense of calm and restoration and familiarity, a sense of mystery. They're able to capture emotions, and I think it has a lot to do with the fact that they're painting fast, they're capturing the light and the movement of shadows to tell the story of what that moment is like. And I've never connected with art in that way until I got involved in plein air. Ironically, no one in Atlanta really knew what plein air was. And of course, if we asked them if they liked Impressionist paintings, most people would raise their hands in an audience, and we would say, that is Impressionist painting. That's Monet out in his garden painting. That's Cezanne on the mountainside painting Mount Victoria. But we had the privilege that the Winston Churchill exhibit was in Atlanta, and we did an opening event there. And of course, there was an exhibition of all of his paintings. He painted plein air, and his easel was there. So we did a quick course by just having that event, so that they understood what plein air painting was. Our first year, we had about 3,000 people coming to the various events and participating, buying tickets, watching, observing. And last year, we had over 20,000 people.
Oh, my God.
Wow. 20,000 people.
20,000 people. Now,
so how did you, I mean, is that from ticket sales, or how do you calculate that many people?
Well, as you know, Carl, most of this event is free to the public.
Right. You just walk up and you're there. Yeah.
All you have to do is show up.
Yeah.
So for those ticketed events or event gatherings or lectures or demonstrations, we're able to click,
Gotcha.
kind of count.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But when you're out in the Olmsted Park and you have 150 artists up with easels, you have to kind of guesstimate. And we have volunteers that go through and say, there's 10, there's 10, there's 10, there's 10, there's 10. So, and then our artists, they may be along Peachtree, they may be at the Atlanta History Center, they may be on the Chattahoochee River. And so we try to get them to give us sort of a gauge. Today, while you were out and about how many people stopped, observed, that type of thing. So it's the counting the best that we can.
It's a good estimate.
A good estimate.
Yeah. And it's kind of like what I saw. It just seemed like there were hundreds of people milling about and enjoying the event. So, and that was just a small subset that I saw at Olmstead. Olmstead is so, for listeners that are not familiar with it, it stretches for a long ways along Ponce de Leon, and it's just beautiful. It's just, but it's really spread out.
So a new thing that we added last year, Carl, is we allow our artists to paint anywhere in Georgia the first 3 days. So the way it works, so that they do not get disqualified, they must validate that they are in Georgia by midnight on the first Saturday of the event.
So they have to be here.
So
right.
They can be anywhere in Georgia. And the way they validate that is they call, they do a pin drop on social media, and then they send us a picture.
Okay.
And so the picture has to be a street sign, a courthouse, a field, something that we validate that they're in Georgia.
So if you see a desert scene, you know that they're...
Exactly.
Oh, got
exactly.
it. Okay. Yeah.
But then they have to be in Atlanta on Tuesday evening, because that's the artist welcome. And it's the first time that people get to see the artists, and they bring and showcase the work they've done those first 3 days. And we offer it for sale if they do not believe it's one of the paintings to go to competition. Because remember, they are competing for $30,000 of awards.
Are they just submitting one painting for that award, or is it multiple paintings? How does that work? I'm not familiar with it.
Okay, so the last weekend we have an event called the Awards and Collectors event. The artists select their top 3 paintings they've painted in Georgia. They are put in a gallery setting, which we create, and they are judged by 3 prominent qualified judges. Our judges have ranged from one of the most respected and one of the best currently living outdoor painters in America, a gentleman named Clyde Askevig.
Very familiar with him, yes.
The year that Clyde was a judge, we had a Georgia Bulldog, a guy named Wes Frazier.
Yeah, I met him at the event, yes.
Okay,
both of them, yeah.
So West was a judge, and complimenting the 2 artists, we had a collector, and that year it was Dan Amos, the president and CEO of Aflac.
Oh, yeah, he's down in Columbus. Yeah.
He's in Columbus. This year, we are very excited to have the president of the Samagundi Club, which is the arts club of New York City, the likes of which of Winslow Homers, John Singer Sargent, were all members of that club.
Yes.
We have the editor-in-chief of Plein Air magazine, and we have a local artist who curates one of the largest impressionist and plein air collections. Her name is Nancy Frank. And Nancy Frank was a great advisor to us to get started, and she was on the artist selection committee our first year. So we have a real strong lineup of judges this year as well.
Wow, that's fantastic. Yeah. So the editor-in-chief for Plein Air magazine, that is Kelly Kane, right?
That's correct. It is Kelly Kane.
I want to make sure she gets acknowledged there as well. So, yeah, that's very nice.
So it's Robert. Our judges this year are Robert Pillsbury, the president of the Samagundi Club of New York City, Kelly Kane, editor-in-chief of Plein Air magazine, and Nancy Frank, who is a highly accomplished painter who paints plein air a la prima. It is all open air painting. She just does not do the plein air competition events.
Right. Yeah. So what criteria are they looking for? Do they share that with you, their process for judging these paintings?
They do the judging with no one else in the gallery. They have our 15 awards that we give out. We do not give a definition of what that award should be. For instance, one of our painting awards is the best sense of mystery.
Oh, wow.
The best nocturnal. And they have scoring sheets, and they talk among themselves. They obviously, I'm sure, are looking for use of light, composition, and all the usual suspects. But we do not give them any direction. And when they select an award, it has to be unanimous. So I think there's a lot of bartering and back and forth for them to agree. And then at the end of it, they all get to select they all give their own award. So, their own award may be one of the other awards, or it may be their own award for a painting that really spoke to them that did not win one of the other awards.
So Lillian, I got to ask you now. I know you're not one of the judges, and I get that, but going through your mind when you see all these paintings come through, I think I would be judging personally. I wouldn't be expressing it, but I'd be thinking, okay, I think that painting's a winner. That one, yeah, that one there. Do you find yourself doing that? And have you been surprised by what has been selected in the award process?
I think each year there are surprises. I can only think of one year where it was clear who most people thought was going to win the grand prize, and it in fact did.
Wow.
I think most years there are surprises. And honestly, as the artists are allowed to pick what they believe are their top 3 paintings for the judges to review, sometimes I don't think they pick their best paintings.
Really? What makes you say that?
Well, I think sometimes we're not our best critique.
Yeah.
And so just seeing what the collectors like, and just sometimes you do hear the judge say, I walked back in the library and I saw some really good paintings that should have been in the awards gallery. Mm-hmm. So it's not like that painting should have been in the awards gallery, but there are comments that there is so much talent. Really, it's fabulous work. It's fabulous work. And so the experience at the awards gallery, the doors are opened and people come in, and painting sales begin immediately. And that happens for, I think, 3 hours, and the awards ceremony goes on at a certain part. But the rest of the paintings that these painters, the rest of the paintings that these master artists paint are in what we call the library. So there may be 7, 8, 15 paintings by an artist that's done for sale that night. Then the next day it is public. So if you want first pick, you buy a ticket, and the price of your ticket goes toward the purchase of a painting.
Nice.
If you are not that night, it's open the next day to the public free of charge. Come on in. And at 6 o'clock that night, anything that's unsold leaves Atlanta. So it truly is an extraordinary opportunity to have 28, 30 of the finest contemporary Impressionist painters in America in one place at one time, competing, and all of their work on exhibition and available for purchase.
And you're talking maybe 200 to 300 paintings then.
Yes.
Wow.
And actually it's more than that, because do the math. 30 artists at 3 paintings, that's 300 paintings in the gallery. And then each of them has a library. Wow. It's pretty phenomenal. And part of the power of this is to see 150 people out in the park painting that are,
Well, now, if they're scattered all over the place, how does the public find them? Are they notified as to where they're going, or are the artists working independently until a certain time?
Okay. So the first year we gave them very strict boundaries because we were trying to educate the public what this was. So now we give them no boundaries. We give them suggestions of places to paint. But the artists are required to check in with us. We post prolifically through our social media. There are artists on the Beltline near so-and-so. There are artists on the Chattahoochee River today. There are 3 artists in St. Simon's. You can find them at so-and-so and so-and-so. We have artists in Rabun County. So we try to give people where they are. There is a designated day this year right now. On Tuesday, April the 30th, the artists will be in the gardens of the Atlanta History Center, the Gonzueta Gardens in the Atlanta History Center.
That's a beautiful location.
And they have the opportunity to paint farmhouses, extraordinary architecture with the Swan Coach House, log cabins, flora, forest. It's a beautiful...
Streams, yeah. Yes. I mean, it's just gorgeous there.
It's beautiful. And, of course, the public is encouraged to come and watch many of them. paint. Some of the most dramatic and powerful stories are the experiences the artists share that they have in this urban setting. Whether it's people so busy walking on the sidewalk, going to and from, and they on their cell phones that they almost bump into them painting, but they slow down and take a few moments and watch and enjoy. Amazing stories that will make you cry about.
Can you give an example?
Yes. One of our painters last year at the awards banquet happened to win an award and asked if he could say a few things. He told the story of being on Peachtree.
Who was the artist?
Well, the artist actually happened to be a Georgia artist, an artist from Macon, Georgia, Daley Smith.
Okay.
Daley was painting on the sidewalk on Peachtree Street, and a homeless man walked close to him, but not very close, and watched, and got a little bit closer and watched. You know, the regular pedestrians and cars were going by, and Daley struck up a conversation with him, and the artist came closer and closer. After about 2.5 hours of painting, Daley...
So he was there that whole 2.5 hour period?
Yes.
Wow.
And Daley said after he had been painting, he looked at the gentleman and said, "Well, what do you think?" And the gentleman replied back, "I think it's time to sign it."
Really?
He did. So Daley signed it. And before he knew what was happening, the homeless man had pulled out a crumpled up dollar bill and was trying to give it to Daley. And Daley tried to refuse it.
Oh, no.
At which the homeless man said, "You don't understand the dignity you have given me to sit here and watch you paint. I can't thank you enough for. Please take my dollar."
Wow.
And with that, Daley put his hand in his pants pocket and pulled out the crumpled dollar bill that the homeless man had given him.
Wow.
So those experiences are not rare. They happen all the time while they're out, whether it's a young child, whether it is an interior designer, whether it's someone who's never really paid attention to their surroundings and realized the beauty and things that upon first notice are not beautiful at all. And that is the beauty of plein air painting. And
I'd like to ask you a question about that. I think that's wonderful that the majority of the plein air painters will have that interaction with the public. And I just wondered, what kind of guidance do you give to the participants that have been invited in their relations with the public? Because, you know, they're essentially ambassadors of the hobby, or the profession, I should say, as well as the Olmsted Plein Air event. What do you tell them, or do you tell them anything, or do you even need to tell them anything about how they interact with the public?
We've never given them any guidance on that. I think at this level, they truly understand it is a spectator sport. Many times it is not unusual if they're in a public place like the History Center, the Botanical Gardens, or, you know, on a busy street corner, a crowd will gather around them and they talk, and they answer questions, they dialogue. The people the participants that do not want to be around people while they're painting, you will not see them. You know, they will go places where they are alone or they paint with another person. They will avoid the interaction while they're painting. But most people are thrilled and happy to have that kind of interaction and teach while they're doing it.
Just a few months ago, I was doing plein air painting in Colorado, and and it's a magnet. So people would come up and, I would talk to them. I would answer their questions, and because I felt like it was really getting the word out about you can get involved in something like that, or you can enjoy the benefits of just seeing it happen, whatever. I wanted them to walk away with, hey, he was a pretty nice guy, and I think I might try that too, So I appreciate that the caliber that you have is such that they do respect the public, because this has an impact on the community. Arts, we were talking about that before we recorded this show, about the importance of art. And I think Olmstead goes a long way toward contributing to the community experience overall.
Well, I can tell you that when we started, we were not aware of anyone that really was using the word plein air or outdoor painter. Today, there are plein air groups that have sprung up.
They're everywhere.
They're everywhere. And one group that we're aware of has over 150 people as part of their group. And they just, they're what is the right word, organized, and they will shoot out emails and say, hey, we're going up to, the sunflower field. It's $10 admission, but we're going to be painting. We're going to Oakland Cemetery. We're going to paint the cemetery today.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of that going on. I think that always, but particularly in the economy over the last couple decades, the area of our experience of life and living and enjoyment that has received the least financial support in terms of philanthropic dollars and others has been the arts. Yes. It's the visual arts, the performing arts, the musical arts, the theatrical arts. And arts struggle. They do struggle. But the richness and the scientific studies and demonstration of the impact on learning and inclusion and quality of life is huge. And it's an economic driver when the arts are supported and the community supports the art. So we're building a movement. Plein air in general is a movement. And in Georgia, the movement is very exciting.
Why is it called a movement? What does that mean?
To me, it's catching on. People are getting on board. They are buying original art because they relate to it. They have met or talked to the person who has created it. It's not something that they're fond of today and not fond of tomorrow. It's not disposable to them. In our case, with the quality of artists that we are bringing to Georgia with the Olmsted Plein Air Invitational, we are bringing collector-grade artwork. Fine Art Connoisseur magazine editor-in-chief Peter Trippi wrote an editorial, and I quote this: one of the most exciting things in art is happening in Atlanta. And that was after he experienced a week here and saw what was going on, the quality of work that was being produced, and the way the community reacted to it. It is both frightening and exciting, exhilarating, because we have challenges to sustain this. Our biggest challenges are getting the word out and growing the collector base. Because as long as collectors and people who don't even know they're going to be collectors show up and experience this, they will buy a piece of art from an artist of this caliber who they had the privilege and the honor to know and meet, and in some cases, see them actually create that art.
Well, see, now right there is a key element. There's a couple of things there. Seeing the artist produce the work is amazing. And I think that's what people want. They want a connection, a physical connection with the person who created that art. And the other thing that I think Plein Air gives, and what you're doing with Olmstead and other events like it, is you're making art that you said it was collector grade, and it is, but it's affordable to people who are not necessarily wealthy. You know, they're willing to make a reach to pay for that painting and have it in their home. And I think that's huge right there. It's an area that's accessible to really all walks of life. And I think that's a beautiful part of it.
Well, we did something really fun last year.
What's that?
We created a category of competition called Petite Plein Airs.
Okay, so define petite. How petite is petite?
Okay, so petite means that the canvas or board, the painting itself, had to be less than 80 square inches. So it had to be less than an 8 by 10. An 8 by 10 would not qualify. So we had paintings that were, 3 inches by 4 inches, 3 inches by 5 inches, 7 by 9 inches.
Now, 8 by 10 would be 80 square inches, right?
Excuse me?
So it'd have to be 8 by 10 or less.
No, it cannot be 8 by 10.
So it had to be less than 80 square inches.
Less than 80 square inches.
Gotcha. Okay. I'm a little slow, but I eventually catch on.
And so we introduced those first to the attendees to the garden party last year.
Yeah.
And they also had to cap those paintings. I think it was at $500. So they were very affordable. And what was so exciting about that was the younger audience that came and bought those paintings.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. See, that's great.
So one of the paintings that was purchased that it blew me away. A young man bought a painting that night. It was one of the more expensive ones. And it was of the Krog Tunnel at nighttime. So it was a nocturnal where a group of artists went in the Krog Tunnel and painted. And the artwork that just came out, incredible.
Wow.
I've done photography there, but I've never painted in there.
Yeah.
So may have to try that sometime. Yeah. Lillian, how can people help support what you are doing with the Plein Air event at Olmstead?
There are 4 key ways that people can support the Olmsted Plein Air. Know about it, spread the word about it, and show up. All you have to do is show up to experience this excitement. A critical way that we need your help is philanthropic support. You can join the Friends of Olmsted Plein Air. The Olmsted Plein Air Invitational is a nonprofit organization which is fully deductible through your taxes. The financial support for Olmsted Plein Air through the Friends of Olmsted Plein Air, becoming a corporate sponsor, or individuals and corporations can sponsor awards. They give, through that philanthropic support, we are able to offer youth scholarships as well as make donations to conservatory organizations. And then, obviously, a great way to support Olmsted Plein Air is supporting our artists, purchasing paintings while they are here, We do offer them online for a limited amount of time once they go back and leave Atlanta. But purchasing a painting and supporting the artists that are here goes a long way in ensuring the sustainability of Olmsted Plein Air.
Yeah, and when you're supporting the artists, you know, a small commission of that also helps support Olmstead as well. So that's another important way of supporting the Olmstead event.
That's correct. That's correct.
Now, there's certainly a lot in this event that appeals to the public. I think artists are attracted to this as well, and I've noted that in past years, and I think you're planning. Well, I know you're already planning. I just attended one of the events already with Christine Lashley, but you are providing resources for artists to take advantage of, and I wanted you to just take a moment to talk about that a little bit.
As part of our commitment to bringing arts to this community and supporting our artists, we have initiated year-round programming. And this programming comes in two forms. We are working with our Olmsted Plein Air alumni, and we are offering affordable workshops throughout the year. We are also doing lectures and demonstrations. We just completed that one-day workshop with Christine, Carl, and I'm so glad you were able to see it.
It was fantastic. It was nice. I really enjoyed that.
And it was a wonderful day, and most people there were professional artists or aspiring artists. And we've got a 3-day workshop coming up in April and a 2-day workshop coming up in May. We have a 3-day workshop already booked in October, and
it's okay. Tell us who are in those workshops, who are conducting those workshops.
So we're real thrilled that the 2018 Olmsted Plein Air Grand Prize winner, Kathy Odom from Tennessee, she'll be doing a 3-day workshop in Atlanta. She'll actually be painting, and her class will be painting on the grounds of the Atlanta History Center.
Wonderful.
At the conclusion of the Olmsted, a new artist that was with us last year, Cynthia Rosen from New Mexico and Vermont, will be teaching a 2-day plein air workshop, locations to be determined. She has quite a unique contemporary style. All of her work is palette knife, and it's extraordinary. She was very popular with our collectors last year. Jonathan McPhillips from Rhode Island will be here in the fall. And we've got a couple other secrets that I'm not at liberty to disclose.
Come on, Lillian, you can share them here now.
I know, but if I say them then I'm committed to them. But we may do just so.
I tried, folks. I really tried to get it out of her.
The 2019 Olmsted Plein Air Invitation will start on Saturday, April the 28th. That's the day the artists will start painting in Georgia. All of the artists will be in Atlanta starting April 30th, which is a Tuesday, and they will be in Atlanta, Metro Atlanta, creating art and documenting our cities, our landscapes, our urban escapes, interior landscapes, throughout the year, and it will culminate the weekend of May 3rd with the public Paint Quick and the awards and collectors events, including the public gallery.
Very nice. But it's more than just that, as we've heard. You've really turned it into something that is much bigger than just that period of time. When you talk about the workshops that you have scheduled and other possible events in the near future, all of that contributes to something that's almost like it's a year-long smorgasbord for artists and collectors.
I love that word, smorgasbord.
It's just because it's close to supper time and I'm hungry.
Well, and the exciting thing, Carl, the exciting thing is Friends of Olmsted Plein Air is our annual giving program. And when one becomes a friend of Olmsted Plein Air, these educational things throughout the year, the demos throughout the year, are our way of saying thank you. And you have access to that one-on-one and personal relationships with these artists that are from all over our wonderful country and beyond.
Yeah. Well, Lillian, as you think back over what you started a few years ago, do you ever just sit back and think about the enormity of organizing and conducting an event like this? Do you ever just sit back and wonder, what was I thinking?
I especially this time of year, I really think that. But this is all volunteer driven. And, the dream is to be able to hire someone to actually do year-long fundraising, year-long programming. And if it weren't for the passionate, dedicated, and hardworking volunteers, this would not happen. And for that, we should all be very grateful.
Well, definitely. That's a good note to end on. There is one thing I do want to make sure that our audience hears. I'll certainly provide links, but what is the best way for people to find out about the Olmsted Plein Air Invitational?
The best way to stay updated on the Olmsted Plein Air Invitational and all the programming is to visit our website at www.olmstedpleinair.com. We have a very active Facebook page as well as Twitter and Instagram, and the addresses for all of those are Olmsted Plein Air.
Lillian, it's been a tremendous pleasure having you on The Artful Painter.
Thank you for the opportunity, and I can't wait to see you with your easel and your paints.
I'll be there.
Okay. Take care.
I deeply appreciate Lillian taking the time to share that insightful behind-the-scenes look at the founding of and managing the Olmsted Plein Air Invitational. Now, would you like to attend? Would you like to check out the workshops? Would you like to volunteer? Would you like to provide financial support for this event? Well, all you have to do is visit olmstedpleinair.com, and I'll have a link in the show notes. And perhaps I'll get to meet some of you there this year. Now, to make sure you don't miss a single episode of the Artful Painter podcast, please sign up to be included in my email list. Each time a new episode comes out, you'll get a reminder from me in your inbox. So sign up at theartfulpainter.com or carlolson.tv. They both go to the same place, and you'll see a form there that you can fill out. And I do love hearing from you. Since the last episode, I've received these comments from listeners around the world. First is Daryl Anderson. He says, love your podcast. I don't know if I ever wrote you or if I just thought about it, but you ask the questions that are forming in my mind as I listen, but you formed them better said and asked. I think your questions are coming out of your intuition and it's working really well. I look forward to this one especially, and that was in reference to Christine Lashley's episode, I believe. So anyway, he continues, keep it up. Well, Daryl, I'm going to try. When I get comments like this, it really motivates me well. I don't know if I ask good questions. I try because I'm learning. It's just a learning process. So these are just things that pop up in my mind as I'm having this conversation. And that's I want everybody to understand how these shows work. Give you a little insight as to what happens when I do an interview. Many years ago when I started podcasting, it was said, oh, you should have prepared list of questions. And I would do that. And I found it so stilting. I know it kind of helps the guest be prepared to make some comments, But the thing we got to realize is it's a conversation, and you get more information out of conversation. You just never know where it's going to go. So I never script. I never script the interviews. I never script the questions. And so that, I think, leads to a more natural conversation that you benefit from. So that's what's happening there. I'm listening to the artist, and they say something that perks my ears up, and I say, oh, yeah, I want to explore that a little bit more. So it's a lot of fun. And I've got to express my deep gratitude for all the guests that have been on this show, because without them, this show wouldn't even be possible. I have another comment. This is from Valentino Troily. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. But anyway, he says, I enjoyed this interview. It's always a pleasure to learn how other artists work. And by the way, this is in reference to the last episode with Christine Lashley as well. Anyway, he says, I've been using water mixable oils for years and have only recently discovered that I've been using them wrong by thinning them with water. I now use them as I would regular oil paints, but without solvents. And like Christine Lashley, I intermix the water mixable with regular oils, and I clean my brushes with a paper towel or rag during the painting session and clean them thoroughly later with Master's brush soap, Murphy's oil soap, which works well too. Hey, those are great tips, Valentino. And you know what you said there, you said you recently discovered I've been using them wrong. The mark of a person who is willing to learn is humility, right? And humility basically, in one sense, means you're willing to change your mind. You learn something, say, hey, well, maybe I need to try this. That's humility. So thank you for that. And thank you for your comment and sharing your journey in learning how to paint and use these materials as well. So I really appreciate that. Thank you for all your encouraging comments. Keep them coming in. They motivate me to keep producing this show. Thank you for listening to The Artful Painter. It's now your turn. Spring is in the air. We can get outside of our studios now. How about that? So go out there and paint something amazing.
Picture on the TV.